So everybody, this is someone who I just think is so cool. Our guest speaker today, his name's Brett. We work together at the Museum of Natural History in New York, and he's going to tell you all about the type of stuff that he does at the museum. So Brett, please take it away.
Yeah, thanks. It was really fun. Jesse and I worked together. I was trying to figure out how long ago that was. It's been a few years now.
I think
But
it's like 5 years, maybe.
okay, I was guessing 4, but I think 5 is probably more accurate.
Yeah.
Are all of you guys New Yorkers? Are you from other places around the country?
We've got some Californians here as well, but kind of mix of New York and California.
Nice. I used to live in California for a long time. I have a couple things that I can share if that's cool. Okay, let me pull up my slides. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so my name is Brett Peterson. I lead the Media and Interactives group at the Natural History Museum. So these are some of my coworkers, my oldest coworkers. No, we work and do the special exhibits. We do all the films or video games or interactives that are in our halls. So like if anything is digital, if it uses an Arduino, if it uses a computer, if it uses anything like this, that's what we work on. We also do films, like we do traditional media stuff too. We have a pretty small group. As Jesse can attest to, it's even smaller than, than when she was there. But we're all working remotely now, and it's great that we can still keep working. We typically did one special exhibit a year. So like every year we'd have a completely new topic, a new thing that we'd be learning about and like researching to try to figure out what we're going to do. One of the very first projects I worked on was about poison. Like that was the whole show. It was all about different poison and stuff. And this is still, maybe it's because it was my first, but it's also because it was a really great project. It's my favorite project that we worked on. This was like a magic book where, so it was a book that was bound and had 4 pages that you could turn that were made out of Tyvek. So it looked and felt like paper, but it was really strong. And we had a projector, and when you turn the page, it would animate in things like Harry Potter style or something, where everything like the images moved, and you could press on different parts of the page, and you'd see basically like background of all these poisonous plants and how they got their names and why they're named that way and what kind of poison they had. Really cool. I love this as an example because it mixes what I love doing. We mix the digital and physical into something that has presence and in the gallery where people can play with and experience. And it's something that you couldn't do on an iPad or on a computer from your home, right? It's something that's you have to go to the gallery, go to the exhibit to experience. That's what I really love doing. So we do one of these a year. We have all sorts of topics like poison, pterosaurs, the human microbiome, Cuba, like all sorts of random things. And it's super fun. I really love what I do. I like that we get to learn new things and also like push the limits of like what we can do in the gallery. So I have a bunch of examples of stuff to show you that I thought you might find interesting. So this was one of them for poison. This one was let me make sure that, okay, good. Music's not super loud. This was a table in our show about senses. So your 5 senses. In the very end of the show, we talked about how we're offloading sensing to computers. So this was a machine learning table. You could take these little tangram pieces and like here, you could take these pieces and it would say, make a face, a house, a car, a flower, a butterfly, and you'd make it however you want and then press a button and it would take a picture of it and try to guess what it is that you made. So it was really fun. We trained up a model. I got all my coworkers to make a bunch of different things and tell it what it was. and then we just put it in the gallery and it worked. Like everybody, like people would make a car and it would say a car for the most part. And if it didn't, you could tell it what it was and it would mark that and be able to train itself and keep going. So it's kind of cool. A mix of like physical pieces, physical things, and digital. Here's one that was really straightforward, really simple, not really interactive in the sense that like we don't have any sensors or anything. But the start of our ocean show, we had this. There was a projector on the wall, projector on the floor, and the projector on the floor was video that we took. We got a drone pilot to go out and hover over the ocean out at Rockaway Beach. And just stay there and record video. And we put this in the gallery, we project it on the floor, and people go crazy for it. Like I've seen people walk in the gallery and back up because they saw the water, like the waves coming. It was insane. Just really fun to see how simple things like this projection in the gallery can really make something immersive for our visitors. And this one, like, we weren't teaching you anything. There wasn't any content, but it was really fun, and it was a great intro for the show. Here was an example of one of the older ones we had, Fly Like a Pterosaur. It was a Connect game that when you flopped your arms and went like this, you'd fly around like a pterosaur. You could like tilt down and you'd dive for fish. There were two of them. There was one that was like this, so out over the water, diving for fish. There was another one that was, you were a little guy, almost like a bat, and there were little bugs that you could try to eat. Those were really hard to catch, but kind of fun. This feels like a relic of pre-COVID days. I can't imagine any museum putting this into their exhibits now. It was a sand table with kinetic sand in it. I don't know if you've played with kinetic sand where it kind of like sticks to, it's cool. It like sticks to itself, but not to your hands. But we made this big sand table and projected, we have a Connect sensor up on the top too. And it reads the topography of the sand. So if you build up a mountain, it shows, like you can kind of see here, it'll change the color, show like this bright blue of like the edge where the water is, and then it'll make it look like land. If you make it really tall and then put a little hole in the top, it's a volcano then, and it has lava inside the little caldera. We have little like blue whales, shadows kind of swimming around in it. Really fun. Again, I have no idea if anybody will ever put this on their floor again because it feels really gross to have all these people putting their hands all over it, but it was a fun project. Here's another projection one. We do a lot of stuff with Connects, if you haven't seen, because they're accessible, they're available, depth sensors, and they're really fun. This one was also in oceans. We just made little fish outlines, and when you walked towards them, the fish all scattered. And very simple, but people really liked it. As you can see, especially kids, they're like crawling all over and messing with all the fish. This was one from our show about the human body, human microbiome. So this was a 17-foot long table that we had projectors, and you could tap on different spots. We used these sensors under the table, capacitive sensors. If anybody's doing anything with capacitive sensors, we stuck them under the table, and you could tap on the table. It was, it could still read whether if you're tapping or not through the table, and then it would play little animations of these like 3D animations of inside the body. It's really cool. And we didn't have to do we weren't using Connects or anything crazy. It was just a bunch of these sensors stuck underneath the table. This one, I wish I was trying to find a better picture. This was same in that microbiome table, and right here over on the side there's a pinball plunger. So again, like a physical component, I had a little depth sensor, and I put this little pinball plunger, and when you pulled back on the plunger, it would know that you're doing that and let go. It would shoot food into like this gut area, and you could play a game of seeing how the food you eat affects your gut bacteria. And that one had capacitive sensors too to tap the buttons, and then you had this plunger that you could spin around and shoot. Here's another one that was interesting. We had this was about senses again. So there were these heads of different animals, a human, a coyote, and a dolphin. And they have capacitive sensors again on the inside of these heads, and you can tap on the eyes, the ears, the nose, and you can see the brain, the neural pathways for those different animals. The other thing that's cool is that we have a pole, and you can twist the heads, and if you twist them, I don't know if this video shows it. I think this dolphin you can see a little bit. If you twist the head, it turns the brain on the projection. You can see there, it's like turning it around. So you could spin those heads all the way around. We had this cool little connector that keeps all the wires from getting all tangled up, and it was a fun kind of physical computing project. Probably last like physical computing one I'll show. This was from Cuba. We bought these old radios, and I gutted them and I had 3D printed some blocks to hold on to the different things I needed. But when you turn this knob here, there were 3 different stations you could tune into. And when you turn the knob, there's a little dial here, this little indicator would move around. And if you were in between stations, the lights would just kind of flicker on the sides of this display, and it would play static. But if you tuned it into the right station, then it would play the music that you're listening to. So that was really fun, because it was like taking something that existed already, an old radio that had these like tubes and stuff in it, ripping the pieces out that I didn't need and putting in the parts that I wanted. Okay, just some pictures from our latest show, Nature of Color. So we opened this right before our whole lockdown pandemic. It was open for 4 days to the public. That was it, but it will open again. We had a lot of pieces in this, and most of them are non-touch, so we can still use them, or at least I'll show you. Like this one was one that we have this lighting. There's this special sodium bulb that makes everything. This is not a doctored photo. This is what it looks like in the gallery. That when you flood the room with this sodium bulb, everything looks black and white. Everything looks gray like this. And then we have them set on timers that will fade in and out. So it fades from this to this. That's what the room actually looks like. That's what the walls look like if it was in regular white light. But when we turn on these sodium lights, this is what it looks like. This is not a black and white photo. This is like what it really looks like in the gallery. It's really fun to see. This was like a game show. We'll turn off the screens when we open again, but you can use it on your phone. And it's just asking about your personal relationships with color. It'll play music, and you have to try to pick a color that matches the mood, or you pick colors that you like next to each other. And it's kind of a little game show with this blobby host that you can kind of see on this washed out photo. More lighting, RGB lights that turn on and off, that make shadows. Your shadow, when they're all white light, you see one shadow. And then when you turn on different lights, you can see the shadow pull apart into these different colors, which is really fun. This was an indigo dyeing interactive, where we walk through the process of how you dye indigo, and we have these bundles that are made out of, we had a sculptor make these little bundles for indigo dyeing, and then cast them into some flexible resin with an RFID chip inside. And we have a little RFID reader. I don't know if anybody's using RFID. It's super fun. But we have these readers under the table. So if you put a bundle down, it knows exactly which bundle you have, and it shows the pattern that it would make if you had this, like the way that if you folded your fabric in this way. Last one. This one was another Connect thing. It's just playing with color. There's a kiosk here that you could choose your own color palette. And if you went up to the wall and you started like going like this in front of it, it just mixes all the colors around and is really trippy and really fun to see. So that's like, whoops. That is a little piece of what I do. A good selection of kind of the types of interactives we make and the fun stuff we get to play around with.
Thank you, Brett. Oh my gosh, all those projects. That's the color one. So cool. That's so sad that it shut down after like 4 days.
It's a lot.
It'll come back.
Actually,
So,
I have.
Oh yeah. I was just gonna say, if anyone has questions, you can feel free to just kind of ask, or you can put it in the chat. And oh, I see here. Mindy has a question for you. What made you choose to work at the Natural History Museum?
Okay, so this is really fun. I never thought about this as a career. I never like realized that I could do this at a museum. I went to school at ITP. If you guys haven't heard of ITP yet, it's awesome. It's interactive telecommunications program. It's a master's degree at NYU, where they throw people together with all sorts of backgrounds to make interesting work with technology. Jesse went to a program that's basically the same. It's really fun, and I just knew that I liked making stuff. As a kid, I wasn't soldering or anything. Like, you guys have all had like way more experience than I ever did. I took some programming classes in high school. That was about it. It wasn't until after I graduated from undergrad that I really got into like electronics programming and doing stuff with physical computing. But I took a class at this ITP program that was called Playful Communication of Serious Research. And it was a museum design class. And the teacher was an adjunct teacher, and she was my boss. She ended up being my boss at the museum. So I was like, oh man, like I love museums. I like making stuff. I've got a programming background. I didn't realize that these all things could like come together and make interesting work. So that's why I chose to work at the museum. But why I stay working at the museum is because I really find education important. It's something that I can feel good about. I worked at like Verizon, and I worked at other places before, and not knocking anything, but I didn't care about the work I was doing, because I didn't care if we like sold another cell phone or something like that. At the museum, I feel like I can really, it's inspiring. It's inspiring for me to be there. It's inspiring for people to come visit. So that's what keeps me there, is I feel like I'm doing something positive in the world. And it's super fun.
Yeah. Isaiah would like to know about the planning process for these display projects.
Yeah. So we do like start to finish. We like come up with ideas for these interactives and go all the way through to installing them, which is pretty rare. But basically the administration decides on a topic. Sometimes we propose the topic, sometimes the scientists propose topics, but there's like a topic. So like we had one just, I guess 2 or 3 years ago now, oceans. And so it's like, okay, your topic is oceans. Like, okay, now what? Like, what the heck are we going to do for oceans? So we have a group, an editorial group that goes through and they start thinking about like, okay, what are like the interesting things that are happening now with science in the oceans? Like, let's start figuring that out. Like, okay, what are people doing? What are people working on? And they'll start coming up with story ideas. And then we start shaping that up into like rooms, like physically, like saying like, okay, well, we could talk about this piece here and we could talk about this piece here. And our team, our media team, at the same time, we'll just start brainstorming ideas for every topic. Like everything that someone says, we just start like shooting ideas and like, oh, we could make a submarine that you drive around and pick up coral samples. And oh, we can make this giant, the sand table that you can play in and see underwater topography. We'll probably come up with 3 or 4 times as many ideas than we'll actually do, because we'll come up with ideas for everything. And then like some things won't work, or we definitely won't have the budget for all of them. So things will get cut, and we usually end up with about 6 interactives in a show. And then we just start working on them. So we do a lot of prototyping. We do a lot of like sketching and stuff beforehand, and then we'll make them.
Yeah. Awesome. And then Kelvin has kind of a great follow-up question to that. What about the audience? Are you choosing to target kids, or how do you kind of pick the audience for the project?
Yeah, so that's really interesting, because at a lot of museums, you really kind of know who your audience is. Like if I was working at a children's museum, I'd know very well like what my age group is, my children's museum audience, right? At our museum, it's really big. Our audience is basically everybody. We get a lot of visitors from outside New York and outside the US. So we think about that when we're designing things, but we'll target individual interactives for different age groups. So like for color, we had that one that was like those red, green, blue lights. Like that one, you don't need to be able to read. You don't need to be able to read English or read anything to like go and wave around in front of it and have fun, right? But like the indigo interactive, where it's like dying indigo, there's like things to read. You have to like follow the instructions. It's made for an older audience. for that one, we said like 8 and up is what our target. 8 being about when you can kind of read at a third grade level is what we think. So we try to make a range of interactives or films to meet all of our audiences.
Thanks. Isaiah, are there any record of what displays and topics you've done and how you do them he would like to try and replicate because he thinks they're cool?
Yes.
Isaiah is our resident Unity developer in this section. We have like a couple.
Awesome.
Yeah, so Isaiah's making an awesome
Unity for now, probably 80% of our interactives will use Unity for programming. We do, like if it's something with a microcontroller or something small, we'll sometimes still use like processing or P5 or open frameworks, depending on the piece, but a lot of our stuff is in Unity now. So keep going, it's worth it. I'll post a link in the chat. This link shows our, a bunch of special exhibits. And I think, let me see. If you go down to like past the exhibits, there's a bunch of different ones in there. And like, I'll click on one. So some of them you can see.
Do you want to share your screen as you're looking at them?
Yeah, let me take a look. I'll do that. So like down here under past exhibits, I've worked on a lot of these. I didn't do climate change or Darwin, but like Dinosaurs Among Us was one that we did. Let me see if that one has like pictures. So a lot of these will have a video. Oh, that's not very good. Let's see, one other thing, AMH travel exhibits. We have a travel website that, yeah, this is probably a better one. I'll put this link in. Stop sharing real quick so I can paste this in. So this one has a bunch of the interactives that we've worked on. So like this one, this cooking table. Well, that's not, maybe this website won't make it. You can look at it here and you can always, Jesse has my contact information. So if there's anything that you want to know more about, I'd be happy to talk through things, but yeah. This is some of the interactives we've done. I think just dig around on the website. We did have a travel site that had better, like videos of our exhibits. Our YouTube channel has more stuff. It's just maybe not like all in one place, unfortunately.
Yeah. I actually have a question kind of related to traveling. So I don't know if the students know this, but when an exhibition is made, it will travel for a really long time afterwards, like 10 years, like long time, right? Like years and years. And so like how does taking that into account, like the fact that it's going to be like out in the world for like forever, out of your control, how do you take that into account with the design process?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. Yes, so when we design stuff, it's in our museum for about a year and a half, and then it gets packaged up. Everything gets packaged up, like even the walls, except for like the 4 walls, like everything, like all the walls in the exhibit, everything gets crated up. It looks like Indiana Jones or something in there, in these giant crates, and they get sent off to museums all over the world. And they last for about 10 years. Sometimes they'll go places, like we have some that are going to Estonia this year. And so things have to be translated. Like they'll say, oh, we speak these 3 languages, we have to translate our interactives. So when we're designing it, we try to make it flexible. So like all our text is somewhere where someone could just translate it and put the document in, and when it runs, it'll pull in all the strings and be able to, display the right language. And also, like when we're making it, we have to make it really robust and easy to install, because otherwise they're calling me, and someone will be like calling me and saying, I'm in Estonia trying to install this thing and I don't know what's going on. So like at the beginning, when I first started, like my wires were all, rat's nest of wires and stuff. And then I got really good at like, okay, it's going to come back to me if there's a problem. I need to get really good at like labeling my wires, making sure that things are clean. It really helped. We started fabricating. For a few pieces, we fabricated our own PCBs so that we could keep it nice and neat. And if there was a part missing, we could just order another PCB and it would and it would come in exactly how we needed. So yeah, we definitely think about that for all our interactives. We're not gonna see it, hopefully, and if there's a problem, we're gonna be like doing it remotely.
Awesome. I think we have time for like one more question. Are there any other questions? No? Okay. Well, if there's any questions that come in kind of after the fact, I'll see if I can send them over to Brett so he can answer them. But
Yeah.
Brett, thank you so much. This was great. Like, I always love when we can get someone like you to come in and share the work that they do, because it's like that Brett he's using Unity, he's using Arduino, he's used Raspberry Pis. You know, it's like all of the same stuff that you all are learning. You could have a job like Brett's, and it's so cool, right?
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, absolutely. Like,
I remember when I started working with you, I was like, I cannot believe that this is my job and I just get to use like these cool things and like build the coolest stuff. And yeah, man, just the coolest.
fun. And
Yeah,
like I said, like you guys already have so much more experience than I did at your age. So like if
yeah,
this is something interesting to you, you can absolutely find work doing it. There's lots of people that want these skills, that want to do this, that want to, make cool stuff or have cool stuff made.
yeah. Awesome. Brett, well, I'm going to end our recording.